All right. Hello, everybody. We are here for our author interview. We'll give it a second because it always takes a second for us to actually go live. Oh, there we are. I see us. We're here for our author interview with CM Nascosta, and we're going to be talking about some of her new releases, asking questions that you guys sent on Instagram, and all that fun stuff. So we're so happy to have you here. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes. So we'll start off by kind of introducing ourselves and letting you know what our favorite read from you is. So my name's Samantha from Books with Samantha. My favorite is Run, Run, Rabbit.
Mine too.
I love it. This is a werewolf shifter romance, guys. If you haven't read it, it is two very stubborn, very alpha characters, but they're so good together. Like they play some games. There's a primal kink. I love it. It's so good. So that's my favorite. Hard to pick though. Hard to pick.
It is.
Ava, you want to say your favorite?
Sure. Okay. My name is Ava from Ava's Romance Books, and mine is definitely one that I read earlier this week. It's called To Ravish a Rogue, right? That's the title of it?
Yes.
That one's I'm really bad with titles. Forgive me. But that one, oh my gosh, I love it. And I love the cover. I love everything about it. I'm a huge, the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise is my favorite franchise of all time. And so it fed my pirates loving soul. And I am obsessed with monster romances. So you blended two of my two favorite things. So I was obsessed.
I'm so happy to hear that. That was my favorite book to write this year. So that thrills me.
Ooh.
Rachel?
Hi, I'm Rachel from Rachel Reads and Sings. So I read 3 of your books this week, my first 3 of your books. And I definitely plan on reading more. To Ravish a Rogue, I cannot wait to get to, because I'm like Ava, historical, give me pirates, but also give monsters, question mark. But my favorite so far has to be Morning Glory Milking Farm. It was so good. And I didn't know what to expect going into it, but I loved it so much. It was just how did you come up with that idea? I have so many questions.
The mechanics were fun to try to figure out while reading.
What's going on?
Yeah. I was like, this is it. So I'm Tiffany from Tiff Talks Pages. I would have to say To Ravish a Rogue is my favorite, but some of my favorite quotes that I found very hard-hitting and relatable came from Two for Tea.
Okay.
That was just beautiful to me. So I really appreciated that one.
Well, good. I'm glad. I'm super glad. That was a hard one to write.
Yeah. Yes. All right. So Hannah says hi. She's a big fan. And then Cheyenne says that Morning Glory Milking Farm is her comfort read. Yes, I reread that one a couple times too, so I could totally see that. Lots of people loved your new release. All right.
I am so excited that so many of you have read Rogue already, because it is just... I loved writing that book so much. I hated writing it while I was writing it, because that was the first time I've had to share timeline elements with a handful of other authors. And I was cursing all of them up and down, their mothers, the places they're from. I hated each and every one of them. I hated the book. I hated everything about the process until I actually got into the meat of the story. And then I'm like, oh, this is the best book I'm going to write this year. I love everything about this. Thank you, Katie. Thank you, Andy. Thank you, all of you.
I love that. So we read Hollow as our buddy pick for our read along, and that's a Headless Horseman retelling. You have 2 stories in there, and it was so much stinking fun. I felt like that one was so spooky and almost horror inspired too, as well as being a little smutty and fun. So what was the inspiration when you read that? Did you watch any movie or anything like that?
No, I knew I wanted to do Sleepy Hollow because I am a historical reader, in my soul. If you ask what I'm reading, it's probably always going to be a histrom.
Yes.
Ironically enough, I very rarely read within my own niche anymore. I used to be a voracious monster romance, alien romance, PNR sci-fi. And now I hardly read any of it. But when I have the time to read, because I'm either in like reading mode or writing mode and never the same, like never at the same time. So the second I'm out of writing mode and I'm into reading mode, I burn through historical romances like it's my job. So I already knew that I wanted to do like a canon set, Sleepy Hollow, which is the second story of the book. And it's all of my favorite things. It's dreary and meandering. But and historical, and I absolutely was like hell-bent on making it as historically accurate as possible. Like I was like downloading like photos from the National Archives so that I could see like what Hessian uniforms actually looked like, because I hate that he's always depicted with a cape. Like I hate I'm Edna Mode. I am 100% Edna Mode from The Incredibles. Like no fucking capes. I hate capes so much. So like there was this whole conversation in my patron group that they were all talking about like, well, capes are sexy. I'm like, here I am downloading National Archives, and here are you Philistines talking about aesthetic. Oh no, hold on one second. I need to plug my. Wow, you think I would have been prepared with a charged laptop, but oh no, here I am, 15% low battery.
You're fine.
There we go. So yeah, I started writing the second piece first. And then I'm like, okay, well, now I need to give them actually like a little palate cleanser. I'm like, let's write something that's absolutely filthy and disgusting.
Yeah.
That first story was my favorite.
It is without a doubt, I think, the filthiest thing I've ever written. And that is including my Krampus book, which was previously like the filthiest thing I've ever written. But I wanted to make it like as gross and slurpy as possible. Which is how you got phrases like artisanal summer sausage and
oh right. I love that.
But I loved it. It was so much fun. It was so much fun. It was so easy to write. Like I loved it.
I like that you said you're inspired by historicals, because Ravish by Rogue was inspired by a very popular historical romance author, Johanna Lindsay, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay, which one? Tell us.
It is inspired by Gentle Rogue, which is the best of the Mallory series, and I will fight anyone who claims otherwise. There is, without question, one top book in the Mallory series, and it is that book. I loved the trope of James and Georgie being stuck on the ship together and him seeing through her stupid little ruse towards the end. But in the meantime, they've got the whole, the bed sharing, and she's like, oh, but now I have to share a bed with the captain, and just the drama of it. And, because it was, one of those great non-descriptive 90s histroms. So you have her, being deflowered, and she's like, oh, that didn't hurt a bit. And it's just so pulpy and fantastic. I love, as soon as I heard it was pirates with the theme for the Kickstarter, I'm like, oh, well, that's what I'm doing. I'm doing Gentle Rogue.
Ooh, yes.
I love that. And I love how you're giving us those clinch covers in a world of illustrated covers where historical romance clinch covers are like no longer, step backs were kind of going away. And I feel like monster romance authors in particular came back and were like, no, you guys are getting this beautiful clinch cover realness.
Yes.
And I know, Tiffany, you had a question about her art for her book, so I'll let you take it away.
Oh, well, I know that Hannah, who is a big fan, wanted to know what goes into your process when it comes to thinking about themes and your covers in the cover art.
Oh, well, that's a super easy question. I have pretty mild aphantasia, which means I really don't see like a lot in my head. Like I have like vague, like people-shaped lumps in my head. I am not a visual thinker at all. So I really struggle commissioning art. Commissioning art is like one of the most stressful parts of my job. And I have to commission art constantly because I have, a pretty rigorous release schedule, and I put together book boxes for my patrons, and we always have a ton of amazing art in it. So I'm commissioning art like several pieces a month, every single month. So I've kind of gotten like my little stable of artists that I use over and over again, because they are artists who do not need every little detail spelled out, because I do not have the capability to do that. Like, I can give you like big picture overview of what I want. And I'm very specific with, for some of my artists, I'm very specific with, this is the pose, and I'm giving you a pose reference. I'm giving you several outfit references. This is the tone I want. This is the color palette I want. Go crazy. And then there are a few other artists I work with who are able to interpret my nonsense. Like, there's a piece of art for those patrons who are in the listening audience will know exactly what I'm talking about. It's a piece for Run Run Rabbit. It's of Grayson and Vanessa. They just look like Disney villains. And I literally told Vic, who is the artist for that piece, Bloodrit, I told him, I'm like, he's like a big buff asshole that you just want to punch in the side of the head, and he's so fucking smug, and he's just the worst. And she is, petite, brunette, and she's that bitch that you see across the restaurant and you hope she spills marinara in her lap. And he's like, got you, fam. And he did it. And like first take. And every single time I give Vic a piece, it is absolutely right the first time. And I give him just gibberish. And he is able to interpret my gibberish. So that is why I use those same, 4 or 5 artists for every single box, because they can speak my nonsense language.
Yeah. Meg said they did an amazing job with Vanessa and Grayson. They did the like scrapbook art, so gorgeous. Lots of Patreons here saying they love the Patreon, love the book boxes, all of that good stuff.
And our wonderful cover artist who does all of our painted clinches. He's just the most talented artist I've ever worked with. He's incredible. And he literally does the piece like in one day. Like, he'll send me sketches like a week or 2 out, and he'll work on the sketches like here and there. And then like one day I'll get like a practically finished piece. I'm like, oh, you did that this morning. And he's like, don't worry, there's still a lot of rendering that needs to be finished. And he has it to me like same day. It's wild. It's absolutely wild.
Oh, he's so talented.
Yeah, he's fantastic.
Yeah.
Amazing. Speaking of your Patreon and like the art that you put there, I feel like you have such an amazing, like, positive community. Whenever I talk to other people who read your books, they are just so sweet. And also you are so incredible at remembering everyone's names who are on your Patreon. So what is like that community for you? Like, what does Patreon do for you as an author? I
love my patrons so much, so very much. My patrons I love all my readers. Don't get me wrong. Yeah. But I've been a favorite player my whole life. Like, even in my professional life, I used to play favorites at work all the time. I'm still a favorite player. Like, my patrons are my VIPs, regardless of what tier they are at. Because I started my Patreon before I published my first book. So they are literally the reason I am able to do this at all. They're the reason I'm still able to do this full time. So my patrons mean everything to me. Like, Cheyenne, who keeps popping up in the comments, see, there she is. She's one of my comfort readers. And I like seeing you, Samantha. Like, even though we've only interacted like on Instagram previously, getting to meet you at Semulet was like the best. And it felt like we've known each other forever. So like I just love interacting with my readers.
Yes, so much fun. Oh my gosh, so much fun. All right. So we put it like on our channels too, like at seeing if anyone had questions. So we'll kind of go around and we'll each ask a question maybe that we saw someone was asking on our page. Tiff, you want to start us off with any questions you had?
What inspired you to write Two for Tea, and how was that process for you?
Oh, Two for Tea was a really hard one. I don't think there was any one thing that inspired it. Like, I personally have not lost anyone in my immediate family that close to me the way the female main character does in the book. One of my younger siblings had a real close brush with death a few years ago. So I'm not unfamiliar with, with the process. And I feel like and I know this is discussed in the book, but like grief is one of those things that unifies us, like no matter who you are, how old you are, how well you know someone, like grief is something that just unifies us like at a core level. And we had a conversation about this in my patron group just a week or two ago. One of my patrons mentioned that someone she had known from like LiveJournal or like early blogging, like Web 1.0 early blogging days had passed away. And she's like, is it silly that I'm grieving them? Of course not. Of course it's not silly. Like, I am that person that cries at everything. Like, I cry at Google commercials. I cry at church. I cry just talking to little old ladies on the sidewalk. The little old man that came to my house after the census a few years ago had me bawling in my front yard, like over nothing at all. So I am that person that is like a Betsy Wetsy doll. I am just like constant salt water pouring from my eyes. So Harper's like big over the top, like emotional responses to things. That's for sure me. Like I could never attend a grief support group and listen to other people talk without just falling apart with each and every one of them. And I feel like that's something really universal that everyone can understand. Even if you've not personally lost a sibling or a parent or a partner, you've lost someone at some point, even if it's a pet, even if it's, just a beloved pet, you've lost something or someone. So grief is just that unifier that brings us all together.
Yeah, I really loved it. I could really relate to the quotes about depression and like everyone around her wanting to just snap out of it. And so I loved how her little journey, steamy as well, of healing. Steam with the tea, steam with their interactions. I really enjoyed it. So
I'm so glad.
That book.
Yeah, I really wanted it to be not a journey that like she goes from point A to point B and she's better. And I had this conversation with someone who works in counseling last week in Michigan, but I was telling her that I had originally planned on framing the chapters around the stages of grief. Because everyone is familiar with that. Like that's an easy touch point for people.
Yeah.
But the thing that's, I don't want to say wrong, but the thing that's complicated about the stages of grief is that it's not a boom, 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 you go through it. It's not you start at this point, you're going to hit these 5 milestones and you're going to be better at the end. And you don't necessarily experience those 5 stages in the same order. Some people start out with the anger and they never reach acceptance or it's just, there's no one right way to process loss. So I actually postponed the book because I had my original my draft done around like each section of the book was stages of grief. I'm like, this doesn't feel right. Like I don't feel like this character is going to go through these 5 stages and then she's going to be fine at the end, because the point is like you're never fine again. That doesn't mean you're broken. That doesn't mean that there's something wrong. It just means that you are changed because the person that you were when that person was still alive is gone. So I just wanted to wipe the slate clean with how we were processing her grief and her journey through depression. And I'm like, it's not about her waking up one day and being better. It's the people around her seeing that she's struggling and how are they throwing her that life rope.
Yeah. Oh, so beautiful. So beautiful. But I feel like you could do a good job of blending like real life stuff into your books, not just like the smut. Like when people see the cover, like in Moon-Blooded Breeding Clinic, you have infertility, and Morning Glory Milking Farm, you have like a burnt out millennial. So I feel like that makes so much of your book so relatable and like really keeps drawing us into your stories.
I like my goal for Camber Creek, especially like just the universe. Yeah, it's monster romance. It's already fantastical. It's already othered. Like that's baked in. Like the otherness is already baked into the genre niche. Like it's already there in the subtext. I want every single character to be someone that you recognize. Even, right down to like the troll, the nosy troll cashier at the grocery store. Like I want you to know her. Like I want every character to be someone that you might recognize from your life, regardless of what their species is.
That's what I loved about girl scripts, being spit roasted. Well, your tagline of being spit roasted by orcs, I was like, oh, please. And that is where my journey with you began. And it was all of the side characters that really like roped me in. I was like, this is luscious and lovely.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Well, pause and take a look at the comments because we have some questions from some people. So Cheyenne is asking, how do you decide or know what species of monster you're gonna write next?
I'm bullied into it. I'm usually bullied into it. Like the next book is going to be a Naga because one of my editors has been like screeching for a Naga book like pretty much since I've known her. So the next book is a little bit of a departure, excuse me, from the from kind of like the overarching series arc, because I feel like we've done a lot of series arc in the past few books. So I wanted just to kind of hit a reset and bring it back to a complete contained standalone, the way Morning Glory Milking Farm is. So Camber Creek 5, which is probably going to come out early spring. It's called He Loves Me Not. It is an enemies to lovers flower shop. It's a flower shop AU. It is You've Got Mail with a human and a Naga in a flower shop.
Stop it! Oh, that's so good.
That is great. That is
I'm so
fantastic.
excited.
That is nice.
Yeah, it's both, it's enemies to lovers and Grumpy Sunshine, and she is both the grump and the enemy.
Yes, I love that.
Yes, to answer the question, I am bullied usually. Yeah.
Drusilla asks, who's your favorite character? We have a little bit of a debate in the comments. Some people are saying Tate, Grayson. I'm going with Grayson. But do you have a favorite character that you wrote? Like that was the easiest to write? It could be heroine or hero.
So Tate is also a character who writes himself. Actually, I have a funny story about Tate writing himself. I don't know how funny it is. It's funny to me. I had COVID like real early on, like back when like it was first like emerging, because the company I worked for sent me on like this. I worked in upper management and retail, and I was opening like 6 new stores. So I was staying in like hotel after airplane after hotel after airplane after hotel after airplane in February of 2020. So shockingly, I came home and I was sick as a dog. I had COVID. We didn't even know what it was at that point. Like I had it so early on. That was at the point where the emergency rooms were like, stay home. Like if you're not dead, just stay home. I was sick from March until May, and around I wanted to write a Tate piece for St. Patrick's Day. And St. Patrick's Day is, you know, the middle of the month. And I was sick literally from the beginning of the month. So I had a stupid high fever. If this was like Cleveland was in the middle of a polar vortex. I wandered downstairs in my giant Victorian house. I turned off the boiler because I was so hot. I was like dripping in fever. I was like, I don't even know how I don't know how I got down my big curving staircase without killing myself. So I went downstairs, I turned off the boiler. I was completely delirious. And at the end of the week, I had this finished piece of writing. And my news bar, like on my phone, my news bar was just full of Cork, Ireland news. So Tate quite literally wrote himself. And that's one of my favorite pieces that I've ever written. Well, that Tate, it's one of my favorite pieces that Tate wrote. My favorite characters are in no particular order. Tate, Grayson, and Jack.
Yep, that's good. I like that. I love that. I love that. Will we get, or Meg wants to know, will we get any alternate point of view books? Begging for a chapter of Enzon.
I partially wrote Rourke's POV book just so that I had an excuse to write Grayson's. So yeah, I am planning on redoing Run Run Rabbit from Grayson's POV this coming year.
Oh, fun.
Oh my God.
You will never get an Anzan POV. So I'm sorry to break your heart, Meg. That's never going to happen. And part of that is because I feel like it would ruin the mystery of his character if we were to get into his head, because like a lot of people thought Rourke was this very put together, a stern, suave Minotaur, and then you read his POV and he is just a big ball of whiny drama. And I don't want to do that to Anzan. I don't want to get so deep into Anzan's head that it ruins the mystique of his character. And the other half of that is it's not his story. It's not his story. It's never been his story. It's Ladybug's story, first and foremost. He's very sexy window dressing. That's it though.
Fun. All right. So we'll go back and going around. Rachel, did you have any questions from your channel or your readers that wanted to know?
Well, I think you had already answered this. I was just going to ask like what your favorite book that you'd written was, and I think you said Run Run Rabbit, and I just wanted to know why specifically. Like, was it that it was like easy to write? Was it just that you immediately connected with these characters? Like, what exactly was it?
So it was super easy to write. Honestly, though, How to Marry a Marble Marquis was the easiest book I've written. Followed closely by Rogue, because historical is just like in my blood. Like that's the blood that pumps through my veins. Like I wrote Rogue. I'm like, oh, I don't understand why people think historical is so hard to write. It's so easy. It's so easy. Oh my God. So yeah, those were actually the two easiest books to write. Taking out my frustration with Rogue of having to learn to work with other authors' timelines. The book itself, I was like a chapter a day, like without breaking stride at all. Rabbit was easy for different reasons. The characters are so terrible and I love them so much. That they were easy in a different way. I was really keyed into both of their voices. Like I just felt like I knew their character voices really well. And that's usually where I start writing. Some of you probably already know. One of my like author taglines is no plot, just horny vibes. There's quite a bit of plot, but that's never where I start. Like the plot is not anyone's, hero's journey. We're not saving the world. There's not like this big meaty, fantasy plot involved. Like the plot are the relationships. So I always start with the characters' voices, and I'm not as fast of a writer as I used to be. I used to be able to churn out like, 60,000 words in like a week and a half. I'm not that fast anymore. But once I feel like I'm hooked into a character's voice, like the book writes itself. And I was really hooked into Grayson and Vanessa because they're like the same kind of terrible. They were just so much fun to write.
They're so fun.
I find myself saying we need to have faster conversations to people all the time.
I love it. You mentioned like working on other authors' timelines when you're doing collaborative work. You write in a couple of anthologies. Do you approach those short story anthologies different than you would like a Camber Creek story?
Yeah. So no, I don't. Writing the anthologies that I've been in have been super easy because it's been like my own little contained story. For the Kickstarter, it was where they're all standalone. So if anyone out there pledged to the Dangerous Tides Kickstarter and you're wondering, where do I start because you just recently got your books, you can start in any order. Technically, they're all contained standalones, but they all have shared story elements that take place in a very specific sequence. So it was working my plot line around the timeline of like the sequence of events that I had to like learn to do for the first time. And I was so salty about it. And then the other shared world project I did this past year was The Monsters Ball. How to Marry a Marble Marquis is the first book from the series. And my book was, the entire series is meant to share, the thread of the Monsters Ball and, these women being forced to attend. I specifically only had two other authors that I had to play off of, which was pretty easy. but even still, like we had to have planning meetings. We had to discuss like who the shared characters were going to be and what the shared story moments were going to be. So there's a lot that goes into it.
I was wondering, what was the cover discussion centered around that with an anthology? Because the covers were stunning. That was the cover where Samantha was like, look at these monster authors. Like, they're giving us the clinch. And all of them. Did you share, like, or collaborate on all of the colors for each one within the anthology? Or were you able to just kind of go off of
the Monstrous Ball, it was one cover designer for the entire series.
Okay.
And she collaborated individually with each author. So I was able to give her my feedback on what the pose was to look like and how sexy I wanted it to be. I'm so pleased with the cover I got. I think my cover for that book is fantastic. I'm so happy with it.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it was she collaborated with each author, which was really nice.
I love that cover. That sold the series for me. I was like, what is
that? I had like when we were discussing poses, she gave me a few options. I'm like, no, I want the horniest one. Like, no, like she's got pushing down her cleavage and his shirt is, off his shoulder. And yeah, like we need to have like full clinch. We're not half-assing this. Like it is full historical clinch.
Lester Marble. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So much fun. Ava, did you have any questions that you have had on list that we haven't gone over yet?
I have a question about just like, I loved the pirate setting of To Ravish Rogue so much. Would you write another pirate-esque book possibly?
So I'm planning on doing, hopefully by the end of this month, God willing. Everyone's just trying to pull me in like 17 different directions right now. But I want to write a side story. It's probably not going to be a full book, but it is going to be novella length of Cadmus and Fiona. I don't want to say more than that if you haven't read the book yet. But Cadmus is the character that ties into How to Marry a Marble Marquis. He's the character that ties the two books together. And Fiona is a character that you meet in the very first chapter of Rogue. But yeah, I already have a chapter available of them. Oh, I think it's only in the paperback version. But if you subscribe to my newsletter, and if you are already a patron, you're gonna be getting that.
Awesome. Amazing.
So more adventures at sea. I love the original trio of Pirates of the Caribbean movies. So like that was just so much fun to play with. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And like you were like talking about, like I think you said like Dead Man's Cove or something like that, or like use certain terminologies that were from the movies and like things I remember from the movies, like a piece of 8. And I was like,
yeah. I know what that is.
Yes.
And then I was keeping myself up at night, like wondering if I was using like the nautical terms properly, because I'm like, I am a nerd. So here I am like downloading like all of these diagrams of, actual ships, like the difference between, the galleon versus, the different kinds of pirate ships. What was most commonly used? What was the rigging called? What was, there's one line in the book where Charlotte is listening to the scuppers, like the water draining out of the scuppers. And after I submitted the manuscript, I was like, did I use that right? Like, I know I did. I looked it up 100 times, but did I? So yeah, that's the fun of historicals. It's like, did you actually use that correctly?
Well, Cheyenne did ask, like, what book did you have to do the most research for? And is it like your historicals that you feel that for?
No, it's all of them. It's all like I have like a pigeon brain. Like I will fixate on the dumbest shit, and I will lose an entire day researching the dumbest shit for like a single line that could easily be cut out. And instead of just choosing to cut it out, I'm like, no, I have to know. So I will lose like an entire day, like to Wikipedia, and yeah, no, it's every book.
Beautiful.
Is that how the research process goes for you? Is it granular and like micro as you're writing, you're looking things up, or if you have an idea, you're starting with the research and then going into writing?
It's kind of both. Like I'm because I have a pigeon brain, like I know a little bit about a lot of things.
Okay.
So like I take that little bit that I know and I start writing, and then once I get to a spot where I'm like, well, I'm a pedant and I need to make sure this is correct. So that's when I do like deep dives into research. And like anatomy, like reproductive organ anatomy, and because like you want it to be like kind of accurate, and so yeah, you lose an entire day looking up. Yeah.
What's like the weirdest thing you've had to look up? As a reader, I always feel like my FBI agent is just questioning like, what is this?
Oh, for sure. Like my NSA agent is just horrified. Like he's either horrified or he's really into it. Like, yeah, like I think the worst thing I stumbled upon was a video of a dolphin getting a hand job from a SeaWorld employee. But I really wanted to make sure I understood the anatomy.
This is the dedication.
Yeah. You have to know. And again, it's just like a single throwaway line that I could easily cut out. But I'm like, no, I have to watch this video like 4 times so that I understand the way the muscles work.
My word.
I love it. And you know what? It doesn't go unnoticed, because when we were reading Hollow, we were literally like, okay, the head is off and the body is here. Like we were thinking of the dynamic.
Like you have to do the blocking. You absolutely have to do that. I'm not an erotica reader, and I'm super upfront about that. I don't really like to write. I don't consider my books erotica, even though they are erotic romance. They are not just straight erotica, because there's just more to it than just that element of the story. And that's because I don't particularly enjoy reading erotica, because again, my ADHD brain just can't do it. Like if you're going to give me a 14,000 word sex scene, my eyes have glazed over after the first 2 pages and I'm just flipping. But if you're going to do that, you have to commit to the bit. So like you have to do the blocking. You have to know where the body parts are at all times. You have to know how the anatomy is going to work with clothing and with, carrying, and how does a Mothman lay on a bed? Okay, well, either the chair has to have a cutout or he lays on his stomach. Like he can't just be laying on his wings. Like you have to think through all of the blocking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I love that. I love it. Moth anatomy, sweet berry.
Moth anatomy, guys. It's important. We need to know. I love that.
Morning Glory Looking Farm, I read that first time around during the novellathon, and just the room, I was like, oh my gosh, the table, how it's being situated, and as like she's being talked to while she's doing the work, it was like trying to really picture it. And I love that.
So one of my patrons actually drew the room, just based on the way I described it in the book, and she got it like super right. Like she got it like dead on, like totally right, to the point that I had a commission done for the Blue Ribbon Romance book box, and the artist was like, okay, what's the background look like? Like, what does this room look like? I'm like, oh, hold on. I have an illustration. And I was able to go back and pull that patron illustration, because I'm like, okay, she's already done the work for you. Here it is.
Wow.
Amazing. That is amazing. Someone said your plot is just so good. So true. I feel like you're going to get drawn in by the gorgeous covers and the smutty delight. And then it's like the plot that hits and keeps you there forever and ever.
I'm so glad. And like, I did a podcast recording the other night, and it was a pretty new to me reader. And she asked, like, for her audience, who are also brand new to me readers, like, what is the order? Like, what are the 3 books I suggest? Like, what is the reading order? And my reading order is publication order. Like, I strongly feel like you should be reading in my publication order, because there is a huge overarching meta arc in the Camber Creek universe, and that starts with Girls Weekend. It does not start with Morning Glory Milking Farm. It starts with Girls Weekend. So you really should be reading all the books and all the novellas in publication order. If you are not interested in that meta arc, though, you can read the standalone books in their own order, which is like, CC 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever. And skip, the outer universe stuff. But like that, which is why I'm saying, like, I feel like we need to hit reset on the next Camber Creek book and give everyone like a chance to like, okay, let's catch our breath and let's just get back to one core couple and no outside noise, have to keep track of like who's who and who's doing what behind the scenes. So we're going to be going back to just that very contained storyline for He Loves Me Not. But before that, Invitations is coming out. Invitations will probably be the first book I release in 2024, and that is Girls Weekend 3. So that picks us back up.
I love Girls Weekend. That's the
So
first
happy.
thing. Look,
Because you guys know we had a cliffhanger. We had a cliffhanger,
and I am so sorry that we left Silva in that alley so long ago. I talked about this a little bit before, but I had to start over again with a new cover artist, and that was really, really hard. I was like, there was a lot of emotional damage behind having to do so. And for me, like I always make the joke, like ADHD brain, I make the joke, if it's not a hard deadline, it doesn't exist. That's true for me. But also if the book doesn't have a cover, it's not a real book yet. So until I have that cover done, which is why I commission my covers months and months in advance, until that cover is complete, I usually don't start working on the book yet. So having to start over again with a new cover artist was like excruciating. But we're back in business. I got the first proof of the Invitations cover just this week, like 2 days ago. And I'm going to be posting that on social media right after the 1st of November.
Amazing. Since we're talking about updates, some people had questions. I know you said million different directions, but some people had questions about your existing series. One of them was, will you write more in the dark verse that you have with Run Run Rabbit?
I want to. Yeah, I really want to. Run Run Rabbit is probably like my lowest performing book, which breaks my heart because I love it so much. But it's a big departure. It's a big step away from what people are used to. So, oh no, did that hit you in the head?
No, but it was Run Run Rabbit that fell. It's fighting back, guys. It wants its attention.
Like I'm gonna be rewriting Rabbit from his POV this year. I would like to do one other dark verse book. And I think what's important to like remind everyone is that, first of all, it's not real dark romance. It's dark for me. And it's not necessarily even dark romance. It's just like it's the after dark verse. So it's going to be smuttier. It's not necessarily going to have the same rosy colored glasses, happily ever after payoff that you get with some of the other couples. But yeah, I would like to.
Perfect. Somebody asked if we're getting Trap's book, our sexy firefighter.
Trap's book is 2024.
You're churning them out.
I know. Wow.
Oh my gosh.
Some people are asking, do you have a mental map of Camber Creek, like in your head or on paper?
I need to have it put on paper. I like that's something I do need to commission. But Camber Creek is kind of an amalgam of the area that like I'm from, really. And those of you out there who are familiar with Northeast Ohio will know like exactly what I'm talking about the second I say this. But Camber Creek is largely based on Chagrin Falls. It is 30 minutes from the city. It is wedged between this like the suburbs and closer and closer to inner ring suburbs and like farmland. Like this, I live out this direction now. I live like in Amish country. And Chagrin Falls is like 15 minutes from me. So like it's wedged. It's this very, white collar bougie community that is wedged between the city and the farm. And it is, has a good school system and the picturesque waterfall and the little gazebo. And you have like a cherry blossom festival and an old fashioned ice cream parlor. And they do, air balloons in the summertime. Like, it is literally like something out of a Hallmark movie. And from the beginning, I wanted Camber Creek to be like a Hallmark movie with monsters and lots of sex. Like, that was that's what Camber Creek is. And Chagrin Falls is very much like something out of a Hallmark movie. And like I said, anyone who is from Northeast Ohio will know like exactly what I'm talking about.
That makes a lot of sense with 2 for T. When she's like,
so you can look that up online.
Awesome. All right, so we're hitting about the 45-minute mark. I guess we'll just ask if you had any recommendations for aspiring monster romance authors or someone who's getting into writing. What would be your recommendation for them?
Oh goodness. I don't know if I have recommendations specifically for monster romance, because I think being a writer is just being a writer. It doesn't make a difference what you're writing. And that's actually the best bit of professional advice I was ever given. The very beginning of my career, I started out wanting to be a food writer. And Michael Rollman, who is a native Clevelander, he told me, don't worry about being a food writer, just be a good writer. Like, it doesn't make a difference what you're writing about. You just have to tell the story that you need to tell with your voice and develop that voice. Don't worry about what the subject is. Worry about developing your voice and being a good writer. So that's honestly the advice I have for anyone out there who's like, oh, I want to be a monster writer. Don't worry about being a monster writer. Worry about being a good writer.
Yeah.
That's perfect. That's amazing. All right, guys. So we'll give you a second to ask any last minute questions in the comments. Sorry, Tiff, were you gonna say something?
Oh no, I was reading Hallmark. Get on it.
Like, what are they waiting for? Like, you see, like, romantasy is blowing up. Like, if you go on TikTok, you can't scroll 2 videos without finding like the hottest new romantasy book. So like, this is clearly what people want. Monster romance has exploded in the past like 2 or 3 years. Indian romance has exploded in the past few years. Like, this is clearly what people want.
Yeah.
Guillermo del Toro, what he has promised the world, and let us have our Hallmark monsters. I don't think that's asking too much.
Please. And Shape of Water did well. Give it to us.
Yeah. Perfect. So make sure to check out her Patreon, guys. That's like, or all the fun stuff happens is her Patreon for sure. You can find her books on Amazon. She's on Kindle Limited as well. Check your libraries, because I've been seeing a lot of your audios available at my library, like and
almost all of my books at this point are in audio. And if they are not already out, they're in production. Like, the Rogue audiobook is actually already available.
Yes.
Blue Ribbon Romance comes out this week. 2 for T is currently in production. Marble Marquis has a release date. I want to say it's the beginning of December. I've already heard the tape for that. It's out. So like, yeah, audio has just become like so big. And I was never an audiobook reader previously. But like, yeah, just about everything is coming out in audio. And I'm just going to plug this because I don't think a lot of people realize I'm launching a new pen name. I have a book coming out in December. It's my last book of the year. Thank God. It is a Phantom of the Opera retelling, 1990s New York City sex workers. Phone sex workers, I should say. 1990s phone sex workers. And that is for pre-order now, and you can find it under my link tree, under my CM Nascosta.
Oh, okay.
But it's Olympia. Give us
Olympia Ruse, yeah.
Woo!
Yeah.
It's made for you, Samantha.
I'm a Phantom fangirl, so I'm super excited to put this one out.
I can't believe that wasn't my first question. My brain blocked it out. I have a Phantom of the Opera tattoo, and when I saw that release, I was like, oh, I died. I actually died.
He's ready. I know.
But Samantha, I know we have to log off, but I have a bone to pick with you because you're a Raoul stan, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want Polly. I want all three of them
Just a
together.
sweet little
That's what I
bean,
want.
okay?
He's a crier. He's how can you respect a man that cries through the whole damn
But
story?
he's also a Viscount.
And I don't mean like, oh, he's in touch with his feelings and he's letting them out. He's a whiner and a crier and he does nothing. Christine saves herself.
Oh my gosh.
This is a Viscount, so I can look over those deeds.
I don't know. A Viscount is pretty low down on the peerage. Like, I think you could shoot a little higher.
True. I just love, you know what it is? I love a good like childhood like friends to lovers trope. That will always be my
I hate
favorite. So
I hate it. Because you expect
Cheyenne
that
is
person
coming
to
for
still be who they were. Yeah, it's true. You know what, Cheyenne?
Called out. Called out.
I'm feeling very attacked right now. But the person that knew you in childhood is going to assume you are still that person, especially when there is a long gulf of distance between knowing you in childhood and knowing you as an adult, which those two characters have. Like, they did not grow up together, mature together, learn who they are now together. He is looking at her as still that little girl, and I hate it.
Oh, it's so funny. But you know what? My favorite is always when it's Polly, when it's like Phantom Rock.
Oh, yeah.
Then
it works.
That's what I want. That's what I want.
Then it works. Yes. This is not going to be a Polly book. And the reason I'm doing it under a new pen name is because, again, it's not going to be like, oh, it's dark romance. It's dark stalker romance. It is dark for me. And it's dark stalker romance for me. But it is not going to be light and fluffy. And I've already had people asking me, like, is this going to have a happily ever after? I'm like, have you ever seen Phantom of the Opera? Have you ever read Phantom of the Opera? Like, are you familiar with the source material in any iteration? Because I don't think you are.
Right.
But I was very excited. I was very excited.
And the cover is stunning. It's you see exactly what it is. When you said 90s, I was like, yeah.
Got like the slip dress, and yeah, I'm super excited for it.
All right. Okay, so someone asked for the pen name again. Olympia Ruse, guys. It's on her Instagram, on her link tree. I'll link everything. If you haven't done it already, I'll link it in the description of this video too, so you guys can get all of that good stuff.
Awesome.
All right. Any last things you guys want to ask or anything you want to say, CM Nascosta, to finish it off?
Just thank you guys so much for having me on. This was a blast.
Thank you.
We loved having you. What a fun time. Thank you for joining us. Yeah, I think that's it. So thank you guys for joining us for not only the Novellathon, but also this author interview. We've had so much fun. We enjoyed reading our buddy pick Hollow, and we'll see you guys next time. Bye.